I know a lot about financial aid. I do not expect anybody outside of a financial aid administrator to know what I know. So it can be confusing. Different schools use slightly different language. You'll hear financial aid talked about in the news, and they'll use slightly different language. So it can be really confusing. If you are unsure about something, feel free to reach out to my office, to our amazing admissions team. My office works very, very closely with admissions. So odds are when you're reaching out to talk with us, you're already on our radar from our partners over at admissions. They're like, hey, this person's going to reach out to you. They had some questions. I directed them to you and your team. So just know that we are working really, really closely. It's not lip service. And we are happy to tackle any questions you have, even if it's very general questions. We obviously are here to answer all your questions about Pacific, but if it's about financial aid in general, um, we can answer those questions too. We are a resource. So please use us as such. We don't know, obviously, we don't know a lot of details necessarily about other institutions, but we know a lot about I don't want to say generic, the general financial aid that we can answer a lot of questions for you if you need clarification on things. Today, specifically, we want to talk about looking at your financial aid and your offer letter. So, this is a really important piece of information, obviously, as you are making your decisions for where to attend. The price is a factor. So, knowing what you're actually seeing is super important. I meant to go to this slide before. So, in our office, we have two amazing folks who work with our undergraduate students. We have Jennifer Cruz Hernandez and we have Stacy England. Our configuration is to split the alpha. So if your last name begins with A through L, Jennifer is going to be your financial aid counselor. M through Z, Stacy is going to be your financial aid counselor. We are a small enough team, though, that we work together. Stacy and Jennifer and I, at least 3 times a week, are sitting down together in the same room, just going through different issues, different situations. So we probably also know what is going on with other students. So if one of them is out that day, somebody else can step in or get the pertinent information so that they can bring it back to the other one. Drop by, call us, email us. You will hear back from us. It's a busy time of year. We understand that because y'all are trying to make these decisions. So we are fielding a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails right now, but we will always get back to you. We try to do it within about 3 days at the longest. A lot of the time, we're able to get back to you much faster than that. So, if you have not already gotten your financial aid package, you probably will very soon. We send out both a physical letter that goes out in the mail. It's not in a big envelope, it's not in a folder, it's in a normal letter size envelope. In there, you will have your letter from the university or from my office. You'll have your financial aid package, which we'll go over in a little bit. And you'll also have a trifold brochure that has information about other resources, scholarships, next steps, things like that. If for some reason you have lost it and you're like, oh, I actually think I need that, reach out and let us know. Everything that is on that pamphlet, though, we also have linked on our website, so we can share all that information with you. The digital notice that you'll get goes to your email, and it's going to include the instructions on how to access your financial aid in your student portal. Get real familiar with your student portal because for the next 3, 4, or 5 years, you'll be using that portal a lot, and not just for financial aid, but that is really kind of the hub of where a lot of the key information can be found. And that obviously updates much faster than, say, if we were sending out a secondary letter, which we probably are not doing. But that is usually, I think that's an overnight process. So any changes that happen, anything we receive that we get to update, you'll see that reflected the very next day once we are able to satisfy that in our system. So in the mail, the physical letter that you got in the mail, this is what your financial aid letter should look like. In it, you will see the very top, it's going to have your student name, your student ID number. We hope that eventually you'll memorize your student ID number, but if you don't, it is always going to be on your ID card, and you'll be able to find it in your student portal as well. Excuse me. The top half of the letter is going to show the estimated cost of attendance. The cost of attendance is super important. It has the breakdown of the actual billable costs as well as the indirect costs that are built into the budget to help you plan. Um, as you go through it, you'll see, in your tuition and fees, your housing and food, those are your direct costs. If you're living on campus, you're going to get a bill for your housing and for your meal plan. You're going to get your bill for your tuition and fees. The other section, books and supplies, that's an estimate. Some students will spend that much, some will not. All depends on a lot of factors, your major, where you're able to find books, transportation, personal, miscellaneous. These are things we are never going to charge you for, but they're included because we know that these are things to plan for. Especially, I always like to say, personal and miscellaneous. If you are not close enough to home to be popping home on the weekends to do your laundry, we hope that you are buying laundry detergent to do laundry during the year. That is a personal and or miscellaneous expense. Um, Below that, you will see your financial aid offer. And this is broken up into a couple different sections as well. The top is going to be your scholarships and grants. Those are funds that do not need to be repaid. The scholarships, you will see your merit scholarship there. If you have a senior preview day scholarship there. If you have federal or state grants, that would be listed there. Below that, you're going to see the loan section. So in there, you will see one or two potentially loans through the federal government. If you have work study, that's in a separate block as well that you would see if you've been offered work study. And then at the very bottom, is going to give you your estimated out-of-pocket costs if using all the offered aid. I should tell you all right now that I'm very bad about going ahead of myself before I actually advance slides. And this is probably why I should not be allowed to advance my own slides. But now you can see it bigger because this is exactly what I just went over, just blown up. Um, my office worked with admissions a couple years ago to do a better job of how to really lay out the costs. Obviously, we know that the the decision-making process to choose a school, there's a lot of factors involved. But one of the things that is very confusing that we know is there's no uniform financial aid letter form, right? So from school to school, it might look a little different. And that can be really, really confusing because it's not apples to apples comparison. So I worked really closely with admissions to try and do a better job of really breaking out what your actual out of pocket, the direct costs are, and then your indirect costs to try and just help families conceptualize it. We also went a step farther. This used to be broken out just by the year total. We went a step farther and broke it out by the semesters so you can see that as well. I think it gives a much more comprehensive overview and it's a little easier to think through what the cost is and what your aid options are than if you're just seeing one number at the bottom. That can be incredibly misleading, confusing, and overwhelming. So when you get to your scholarships and grants and then the loan section, this is where I said, especially the loans, you might see two different loans depending on a number of factors. Your SAI, which is your student aid index number, which is a number that when you fill out your FAFSA, you get your SAI, and that tells you how much need-based aid you're eligible for. One thing you will not see in the loan section is anything to do with the Parent Plus loan or with a private loan. We don't include those in the financial aid package because not everybody is going to utilize or qualify for those. And so we don't want to confuse folks by putting something in there that you may be eligible for, and it can lead to misunderstanding. People might think that by going in and accepting it, that means that they've applied for it and they haven't. In the brochure that you get in the physical copy of your financial aid offer, there is information on the Parent Plus loan and private loans as well. There's a QR code for it. So I definitely encourage you to take a look at that. Just know that you're not going to see that listed on your aid package because we don't want to put it there and lead to any kind of confusion or misinformation. Um, when you log into your portal, you are going to see your financial aid checklist. And that is where you're going to be able to accept or decline your financial aid, sign your offer letter. You're going to check for any missing or required documentation. And then if you know you're getting outside scholarships, you'll be able to report them in there so that we can account for them, be on the lookout for them. There's no deadline for the checklist, but we definitely recommend looking at it often and early to both familiarize yourself with it and just to know that, okay, I'm done. Like I've done the checklist, everything's clear. I know I don't have anything else to worry about. It's peace of mind. And honestly, the sooner you look at it and kind of move through it and check all the things off the checklist, which is what a checklist is, um, it's one less thing for you to have to think about. You can, move on to other things, think about rooms and roommates and registration and all the other good stuff, the fun stuff. Nobody's ever accused financial aid of being the fun stuff, that's for sure. Your checklist is going to look something like this. Obviously, before you have uh, completed your required documents, that would still show as action needed. But as you move through your checklist and take care of these things, they will show up with the green check mark. So if you feel like you are waiting on something, if you think that, I feel like I should have heard back about something by now, go in and check the checklist to make sure that we're not still waiting on something from you, because there may be a scenario where we need some additional documentation from you to complete your packaging. Um, yeah. So just familiarize yourself with that and get used to looking at it. You have the option to go through and accept everything line by line. So when you go into your financial aid to your checklist and you click on review your offer, you'll see here, for example, this student has the Advanced Academic Standing Award, their Pacific Academic Scholarship, Senior Preview Day, and Paysitter. You can accept each one of those one by one. If you listen, I'm going to say like I don't recommend not accepting the free money. Free money first is one thing we say, and definitely utilize all the free money resources. But if, say, when you are looking at the loan options, um, you have been offered a subsidized and an unsubsidized loan, if you want to take just the subsidized loan, you can accept that, and then you could decline the unsubsidized loan. If you are accepting any of your federal loans, there are two additional steps, the direct entrance counseling and the direct loan master promissory note. Both of those things are signed through the Department of Education. So the links will take you to an outside website, studentaid.gov. You'll use your credentials that you used for your FAFSA to log in to fill those out. Entrance counseling it's really a borrower basics. It's a short overview about what to expect when you're borrowing, about what repayment looks like, about understanding how interest is accrued for different loans. So it's a really good tool. You can go through it more than once. And I know I have encouraged many students, as they get to maybe their second, third, fourth year, and they're like, I can't remember, like I'm starting to think about the long-term effects of this choice or that choice. I say go back to the entrance counseling because that is going to give you a really good idea for planning for post-graduation. The other thing is the master promissory note, which is basically your agreement with the Department of Ed to repay the loan that you are borrowing. Federal direct loans are through the Department of Education, so they do own the master promissory note. You only have to sign that once. They're good for 10 years. So if you come back to school after 10 years, or well, for these purposes, you're probably only going to have to do it once. Let me just put it that way. If you have the requirement or the outstanding requirement to complete required documents, this is what I was talking about earlier. It might mean that we need additional information. There is a process called verification that the Department of Education selects a random population of students once they have filled their FAFSA out. Basically, a quality assurance check. This number has decreased greatly over the last few years. In 2024, when FAFSA simplification was rolled out, a lot of the changes that were implemented meant that there were fewer instances where verification needs to happen. A very, very small number still get selected though. And it's not because of anything you did wrong. It's not because there's a problem. It's just kind of luck of the draw. It's like being in the TSA. Oh, I was going to say like being in TSA and getting selected for a random search. Well, it's not quite the same, but just know that if you see that you have required documents out there that you need to complete, don't think it's because you did anything wrong. Don't worry that there's a problem. Just reach out to us, and then we can talk you through the next steps, how to get that information to us, um, what we're needing, anything like that. Once you have done all that, accepted your aid, reviewed it, turned in any missing documentation, the last step is to sign your offer letter. It won't, you can't sign it until everything else is completed. So if you try to get to the screen, it's not going to let you proceed forward. What this final piece does is it shares with you what the terms and conditions are for financial aid. So in order to remain eligible for your financial aid at Pacific University, there are certain things that you have to maintain. You have to all the offers are based on full-time enrollment. So if you are going to be less than full-time some semester, there may be an impact to your financial aid. You have to maintain satisfactory academic progress. That means that you are meeting a certain standard for GPA and completion of attempted credits. Um, there's it's a very short disclaimer. I'll say that it's not there's not a lot of fine print. There's nothing as a gotcha in here. But we want to make sure that you understand what you are agreeing to when you're accepting these things. And we are putting out there, these are the expectations. So there isn't any confusion about it. There will be confusion. That's just the nature of financial aid. So don't feel bad once you've signed this and then in a semester or two you say, I don't remember what I agreed to. You can always reach out and ask. We're not going to turn you away for asking questions because there's no stupid questions in financial aid. It's just a fact. Um, so financial aid package components that are renewable. Your merit scholarship. So that's the scholarship that you got upon your admission. So you should have gotten that letter from admissions. That automatically renews as long as you are completing 67% of your attempted courses with a 2.0 or better. Um, and that renews for 4 years. Same with your senior preview day, your talent awards, and pace setters. Those will all renew as long as you are maintaining satisfactory academic progress. And yeah, I don't know the end of that sentence, just fell out of my brain. Sorry. Your need-based grants, your loans, your federal work study, those require you to fill out a FAFSA annually. So while your merit scholarship, you don't need to complete a FAFSA in order to get your merit scholarship. Unlike that, your any federal grants, so your Pell Grant, your Oregon Opportunity Grant, if you have one, your federal loans, and if you have federal work study, we have to have a FAFSA on file every year. It is not a one and done. So you will get a lot of communication from our office every year when the FAFSA opens, so October 1. When the FAFSA opens, hey, don't forget to do your FAFSA for next year. If you are receiving work study, we require that students file their FAFSA for the next year before March 1st. So you're going to get a lot of reminders from our office. Please read the emails from my office because there is often good information in there. We don't like to just send emails for the sake of sending emails. We try to limit it to just when it's pertinent. Um, your Pacific grant, a FAFSA is required to complete it, but the amount is guaranteed year over year. So if whatever your Pacific grant was upon your initial financial aid packaging, even if something happens and you have a big change in your SAI from one year to the next, it goes up a lot. We're not going to reduce your Pacific grant for that. That is locked in for your 4 years. Pell Grant, SEOG, work study, direct loans, those all require a FAFSA on file, and we encourage students to do it as early as possible. Again, because once it's done, you don't have to think about it. You can move on to other better things to think about. The loan resources. So I told you in that brochure, there's a QR code that has a lot of information about the loan about the different loan options. So the Parent Plus loan is a federal loan option. It's borrowed by the parents of a dependent undergraduate student. So the application is pretty short. This year's, they haven't put out the final rules for the 26-27 year, but it's usually around 8.5% for the interest rate, and that is locked in for the life of the loan. That's not a variable rate. For 26-27, so for those of you who have had who already have a kid in college, maybe, and you've already taken out a Parent Plus loan, there is a change. For those of you who have never borrowed, you've never known any different. So you just pretend like you're not hearing this part where I'm saying there's a change. Um, for 26-27, there is a $20,000 annual limit in Parent Plus borrowing, and then a 65,000 aggregate lifetime limit. Math tells me very quickly that that is not $20,000 for 4 years. Don't ask me why these are the numbers that the federal government came up with. I cannot answer for them, nor will I try. But that is just something to keep in mind when you're thinking if you are going to borrow a plus loan, just something to consider. Um, being mindful of those annual and aggregate lifetime limits and kind of thinking through the 4 years as opposed to taking it 1 year at a time. You will need to apply for that every year. It's not a one and done similar to the FAFSA. It's per academic year that you have to do that. Private student loans are offered through private lenders that could be places like Sallie Mae, which is exclusively in the business of educational loans. That could be through your own personal bank or credit union. Um, I know that like this year, Navy Federal, a credit union, they have decided to get into the student loan game. So where they have not historically had educational loans, this year they are going to. I always encourage people to shop around. If you're going to be getting an outside loan or a private alternative loan, don't just go with the first thing that you find. Um, if if it is in the student's name, there typically is going to be a requirement for a cosigner, just because students at 18 don't really have much credit history. So not as easy for a student on their own to get approved. I will say this right now. If your student knows that they are going to be going on to graduate school, I would, and if you know your student is going to go on to graduate school and you are already thinking that you would be taking out a Parent Plus loan or some kind of alternative loan, I would encourage you to look into a private loan that your student could take out in their name with you as a cosigner, only because that allows your student to start building credit right now. Um, Interest rates are going to vary. I'll always encourage people to really only look at loans that have a fixed interest rate. Variable can just be too messy. There are two different tools on our website that you'll find the QR code for those on our brochure as well. One is called Fast Choice, and the other is called Sparrow. Both of those are essentially search engines tools to compare different loans all in one spot. So from different lenders, one place to compare them all. But again, check in with your own personal bank or credit union just because they may have more competitive rates. Also, sorry, I'm trying to get my dog to back up. Um, Another thing to think about is when you are looking for a loan option, see what the cosigner, if you're going to cosign on a loan, see what the cosigner release clauses are. A lot of educational loans have cosigner releases where once the student goes into repayment on it, after 24 on-time payments, the cosigner is released from it entirely. And so it A gets you off the hook as the parent if you've co-signed, but B also just continues to help the student build that positive credit history. I will also say just one thing real quick. With the changes to, well, Parent Plus and Grad Plus loans that have gone or are going into effect in 26-27, it's changing the way that we as financial aid administrators have to think about and talk about private loans. Um, Up until now, I think, well, for me personally, I know enough about private loans, I know the basics, but because I am not legally allowed to be in a position where I'm making recommendations to people about private loans, um, I really wanted to kind of stay out of that. And I'll point people to trustworthy resources, but I'm not going to make any kind of recommendation. The landscape is going to change now with some of the changes from the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that was signed into law last year. And it's going to mean that there is a bigger portion of educational funding is going to be through private loans. So, not just for us at Pacific, but any school that you're looking at, if it seems like maybe the financial aid staff that you're talking to doesn't quite have a solid grasp on how we're speaking to you about private loans, it's because we're all kind of learning a whole new part of this that we have not had to really dabble in much before. Um, Okay, special circumstances. This is super important and something that I always want to make sure to put on parents and students' radars. So, the FAFSA uses 2-year-old tax information. There's great reasons for this. It's called prior year. There's great reasons for this. It's actual numbers. We get imports directly from the IRS. What used to happen is a lot of times people would be entering their, income information and they would add not realize that they didn't have to add the cents. And so there would be a couple extra digits, which would totally inflate what their AGI was and would create a lot of confusion. We don't have to worry about that anymore, which is wonderful. And that being said, a lot can happen in 2 years. A lot can happen in 6 months. So if your FAFSA, which is using for this year 2024 tax information, if that is not an accurate representation of your current financial situation, please let us know. We typically will do a review for things like job loss or significant reduction in income, if there is a death or if there's been a divorce, anything that has impacted what the household income looks like, we want to take a look at that. It may not always result in additional federal aid, but it could result in additional institutional aid that we're able to offer. And really, we don't know what we don't know. So even if you think, I don't know if this really rises to the level of a special circumstance, let us know. Because what I find happens a lot is, maybe not a lot, but what happens often is, a family will call and they'll be saying, hey, this thing is going on. And through the course of them telling me about this situation, it might not be the situation that they came to me about that we can work with, but they will say in passing, oh, and XYZ. And I'm like, oh, wait a second. You mentioned this over here. Can we talk about that? Because that is something that we can work with. Um, like I said at the beginning, 40 plus hours a week doing financial aid. I don't expect you all to know even a fraction of this. In a perfect world, you're going to deal with financial aid like 2 times in a year. And I don't want you to have to know all the things that I know. It'd be a weird hobby if you did, and I'm not here to knock anybody's hobbies, but I would definitely wonder a little. So please reach out and ask. We're always going to take a look into it. We're always going to explore the opportunity. Um, we're never just going to say no. I mean, first of all, we're not allowed to just say no, but we're never just going to say no. We're always going to see if it's something that we can work with. Um, and that is Marsh Hall. So if you've been to campus, you've probably seen it. If you go in that front door right there and hang a right, my office is right there on the first floor of Marsh Hall, just to the left of the fireplace. Please come by and see us. Please come by and see us around Halloween. We get a little obsessive about Halloween and we really go all out. So we love a theme in my office. Um, we also don't take summers off. We'll be here all summer. We work during the summer. We don't take spring break off. We'll be there during spring break. So feel free to reach out anytime, email us, give us a call, stop by. and we are super excited to meet with you, to have you come to campus, to have you join our big, beautiful Boxer family. And that is it for my presentation that I didn't make.
Thank you so much, Debbie. So I was just trying to type, we're all trying to answer some questions that came in while you're presenting. So thank you so much for just laying that out for all of us and giving a step-by-step process on our financial aid letters as well as what to do next. Some questions, I know my colleagues are answering a lot. So some that came privately to me is if we file the letter of appeal with our financial aid counselor, when can we expect to hear back?
So we are kind of working through those as we're getting them. If we're, email me because it kind of depends on what kind of appeal we're going to do. I mentioned earlier that Stacy and Jennifer and I are meeting multiple times a week. This is the time of year where that starts. I mean, it's literally like last week I was in Washington, D.C. for a federal student aid conference. This week it's like, and we start blocking out like our chunks through the week. So it is possible that it will be this week because we are starting our multi times a week weekly meetings. Um, if it's something else, it is possible that that is something that is being worked through and processed on the FAFSA side. So in financial aid, we often say the most common answer is it depends. And I'm going to go ahead and say that this answer is it depends.
Yeah, I know it was a hard question to ask and just throwing it out there just to
Yeah.
warm you up with all these great questions. But
Yes.
I think the
Bring it.
best thing is just to continue to keep in communication with Jennifer or Stacy, depending on your last name, to kind of see where they're at in the process. I know that they're working really hard with filtering all of the appeals and other questions that families are having. So thank you so much for your patience on that. Um, Debbie, is there a deadline for the plus loan if they're still unsure how much they want to borrow?
No, no, not at all. So, the bill goes out in, I'm going to say mid-July, I believe, is when the first bill is going to go out. Um, there it, whether it's a federal Parent Plus loan or a loan through a private servicer, I would say usually it takes 2, maybe 3 weeks to get those like fully processed and dispersed. So you really have a lot of time. You could even wait until the semester has already started to say, you know what, we thought we were going to do it this way, but now we want to pivot and do it through a private or a plus loan. So you've got plenty of time to make that decision.
And then just as a follow-up with that, Debbie, if they, let's say they applied for 20 and then now a scholarship came in later, can they make adjustments?
Absolutely. Yep. You just need to reach out to our office, say, hey, we actually don't want this much. We want to reduce it by however much, and we can make that adjustment.
Okay, great. Kind of following up with the question about special circumstances, are there any circumstances that families will usually disclose that you're like, thank you for sharing, but unfortunately not something we usually consider? Just to get kind of an idea, because I think families are kind of on the fence with certain situations. Anything that you can think of off the top of your head?
I would say that right now, the most common one that we are fielding is the question about when they have multiple students in college. So if you do have multiple students in college and you have a older student, you will know that previously, when you were filling out the FAFSA, there was a question about how many in your household are in college. And part of the calculation was taking that into consideration. With FAFSA simplification, which rolled out in 25, 26, 24, 25, doesn't matter, it's newish. They removed that from the calculation. They also changed a bunch of other things, so it turns out more people are actually eligible for Pell than they were before. We don't have an institutional policy that allows us to adjust, the AGI or the SAI based on multiple in college. That being said, um, a lot of times that's one piece of the situation. So it might not be that thing that we can look at additional aid for, but that paired with other things. we might be able to take into consideration. Other things are medical bills. So there are rules around what we can do in terms of adjusting FAFSA information for medical bills. The, oh, I'm forgetting the phrase right now. Mm, income adjustment allowance, that's not right. But basically, there is a percentage, 11%. The federal government assumes that 11% of your income or your AGI is going towards medical costs. So if you have had significant medical costs in your family or in your household, the first thing that we have to do if we are looking to make an adjustment to the FAFSA information is how much, if it exceeds the 11%, we can take everything over. If it doesn't, we can't factor it in federally. We have a lot more leeway when it comes to institutional dollars and what we can adjust for with our own Pacific money. Um, the other thing that I don't think I said earlier, and I just feel like it's really important to like name this, um, a lot of times we have, our starting point for a lot of this is the FAFSA. And a lot of times people can look really great on paper. And we also know that it is not reflective of all situations. So where there may not be leeway on the federal methodology, having the, I would say the perk to being a small school with such a tight net admissions and financial aid office is our admissions counselors know you and they know us. And so we are working with them and they are coming to us saying, I know this, that, and the other is at play here. And I really think we should consider this. And I don't, a lot of times, why does financial aid need to know my business? And I get that. It's kind of an uncomfortable position to be in. But you're not going to get any shade from us about it because we know that life is lifing and sometimes you need the extra support. So please don't ever hesitate to share with us, if stuff's going on, we're going to try and mine through all the stuff you're saying to see what we can work with to get additional aid to make this happen for you and your student.
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. I know that families are kind of asking this question, so I'm going to just help you. I'm going to answer it first, and then you can chime in some additional things. So families have been asking, we're receiving a lot of financial aid packages from schools. We're considering any as much as two, and sometimes five or more. And what are the next steps as we're seeing a discrepancy? So the best thing to do is contact your admissions counselor. We're here to support you. We have some really great resources to help you compare direct costs. And so you're comparing apples to apples. Let us work with it with you because we know you, we've worked with you in the process. So let us help you first with making that comparison through our spreadsheet. And then we talk it through and we say, okay, now we've compared it. Now it's a time when we have conversations with you. You'll share more information. We say, hey, this is actually a great time to now talk to Jennifer or Stacy about some circumstances you just shared or information you have on all these schools you're considering, or now we're realizing it's coming down to costs. So we're here to help you with some next steps as you're comparing financial aid packages. So chime us in, let us look at it, and once it kind of reaches the point of we need to chime in financial aid, we can help and direct you to your financial aid counselor. Anything, Debbie, that else you want to add to that as they're kind of looking at all these packages?
No, I'd say you nailed it.
You're like, yep, keep going,
You
answer
don't
all the
even
questions.
need me. You don't even need me.
We always need you. Okay, just as I said that, a question came in. So do other subsidized loans exist, including outside Pacific, besides the $3,500 that I was offered?
So that would be the federal direct subsidized loan. I am not sure. Like I said, the private loan landscape is going to be changing a lot over the next few years. I will say that I don't know if this is helpful, but I think it gives some context. So, in speaking with a lot of my colleagues who work on the private lending side, one thing that they told me in one of my first conversations following OB3 being passed was, usually we are working on developing new products over the course of 1, 2, maybe 3 years. Right now, with all the changes happening on the financial aid loan landscape, the private lenders are learning about it in real time with us. So they haven't had 2 years to develop new product and to roll this stuff out. They are working on developing new things right now. So while this year there might not be a different subsidized loan option, that's not to say that next year there won't be from another lender, whether that's going to be, like I need to stop using Sally Mae, but that's like the first one that pops into my head. I am not advocating for Sally Mae. Please make your own decisions, whatever is best for you and your family. That's just the one that sticks in my head. Sally Mae, College Avenue, Earnest, they might roll out a similar loan like that. I don't know yet. I will continue to be having meetings with a lot of our private lending colleagues to try and get as much upfront information as I can to bring back to our students. It's going to be an interesting couple of years with seeing what's being developed and offered to students.
Yeah, I think you're learning like as we're learning, right? New information and things are changing. And students, my recommendation to you at this point, because you've applied to Pacific, you got a received a financial aid package, you're looking at some other scholarships that many were due on March 1st, but not to say that there's no other opportunities. Reconnect with your college and career counselor and reach out to them to see if there's any local scholarships that can be applied to other institutions. So take a look at that first and chime in your admissions counselors. We're here to help you with creating your essays. We want you to have as much money as possible, and not all those scholarships are coming down to an essay. So if we can support you on that journey, please reach out to us so that we can help you with making the strongest essay possible so you can have some additional scholarships. And definitely ask Jennifer and Stacy too, because they may also have a list of some national scholarships that you can apply for as well that are available at this time. I want to chime in any of my colleagues if they've received any questions that maybe I didn't get privately messaged to me if they want to unmute themselves and any other questions that popped in. If not, oh, no. Okay. Just checking one more time. Oh, Uncle Jeff, yes.
I think uh, Lauren and Maddie, we and Brant, we were hammering out questions in the chat. So nothing specific that was directed, I think, and my colleagues can chime in if they want. But yeah, I think the big message to if everybody is work with us and let us work with you and help you as much as we possibly can because we want you to be at Pacific. We'd like you to be a boxer. So um, don't hesitate.
Yeah, thank you, Uncle Jeff. And I know that there will be questions. So again, like Debbie said, please reach out to us. Please reach out to your financial aid counselors for specific questions. Take a look at this recording again, look at the slides. And as you kind of reflect on your financial aid packages, really reflect on why you love Pacific. Why are you here jumping on the Zoom? Obviously, there's something that's super amazing that you can't find at other schools. There's a reason why you keep coming back to us. So please lean on that as you kind of look at your financial aid package and know that it's a special place. And as an alum, myself and my sister and my husband, we all picked Pacific and Debbie and Uncle Jeff and many of our colleagues. We made that investment. So hopefully you'll make that investment too. But yeah, I just want to thank all of you for attending. Debbie, thank you so much for being with us on your evening. I know your son is waiting for you to have mom be around. So thank you so much for your dedication on this evening. Thank you, families, for being here. I hope it was a memorable one for you and worthwhile. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Deb. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank you for being here
everybody.
with us.
Have a nice evening. We'll see you soon. We'll be in
Now is a
touch.
great time to be a boxer.
You're right, Uncle Jeff. Thank you so much, team. Thank you, families. Get some rest. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Zane, I wish I could grow that like you do.
Thank you so much, team. Thank you so much for
Maya,
filtering all those
tell your family how's
questions.
it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Have a great evening. Thank you, colleagues, for answering all those questions that were coming in. Debbie, thank you so much.
Peace.
We'll
Have a good
just
night.
see if anyone else has any other questions as we close the room. Just checking. Let us know if you have any questions. Now we will be closing our session.